Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of our web design tutorial series. I am Michał from mdbootstrap.com and today I will teach you how to create this beautiful animated SVG wave with a subtle gradient, call to action section and interactive image. It's stunning. Just look at this slow, smooth movement in the background. Let's do this. But before we start, a small request. If you like what we do, please subscribe to our channel, like this video and leave us a comment. It will help us grow and create more valuable tutorials for you in the future. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the code. In this tutorial, I will use Material Design for Bootstrap, which is a free library that greatly extends the capabilities of regular Bootstrap and provides many useful features, like for example, better look, additional components, free templates, and even a free hosting for your projects. To download Material Design for Bootstrap, go to mdbootstrap.com and click big blue Get Started button. Then click big red Download button and unzip the package. Then open it in your favorite code editor. I am using Visual Studio Code. To launch MD Bootstrap project, you need to open it in the browser. You can do it simply by dragging and dropping index.html file into the browser window. If you use Visual Studio Code editor, you can also install extremely useful extension called Live Server. It enables a live reload feature, so it will refresh the browser anytime you change anything in your code, so you don't need to do it manually. At the beginning, let's remove an existing content of index.html, so that we have an empty canvas ready to start new project. Select everything in between the Start Your Project Here comments, remove it, and save the file. Now we are ready to start our work. This beautiful background wave is crucial in this project. It consists of 5 separate SVG shapes, which we then animate. To create it, we'll need all of these SVG shapes. And it is difficult because it is not possible to easily create such non-standard shapes in HTML, because as you can see here, it's a sequence of numbers that are not readable by human. Usually, we use external vector graphics software to create the desired SVG shape. However, since this is not a tutorial on creating graphics, I've already created the graphics for you, that you can use it in your project. You can find links to them in the description of this video. As you can see, there are 5 wave-shaped graphics, all of them very similar to each other. Let's copy them to our project. Let's start with creating SVG element. And then let's set it an ID, so we can later catch it with our CSS. And let's also add a class position absolute. And we want it to have absolute position because we'll use it as a background. Now let's add G element, which stands for group, because we want to group a few separated SVG shapes together. So we need a G element, and then let's copy this path here inside of G elements. Let's save this, and we have a rectangle. Why is that? And that's because we missed a very important attribute when working with SVG element. And this attribute is view box. And let's set it to 0019 to 0880, and let's save it, and magic happens. We have our SVG shape. But how this viewbox works? So it creates a port through which you can view a section of SVG. You can imagine this as, let's say, being something akin to a porthole window through which you can see the world beyond. something like the windows in the airplane. The first two numbers define the position of the SVG shape, and the two last numbers define zooming. So the first one defines a position on the x-axis and the second on the y-axis. So let me, for example, change it to 100, and you can see it moved to the left. But if we change it to -100, it moved to the right. And very similar with the second number, it moved up, but if we add minus here, it moved down. And if we increase this number, it will zoom out, and if we decrease this, it will zoom in. So let's bring it back to the initial position. Now let's try to animate our SVG element. Here inside of path elements, let's create animate tags, and now we'll need to add a few attributes. The first one is attribute name, and then we'll set it to be equal to D. So D is an actual path which define a shape of our SVG. Now we can add an attribute values, and we can cut out these values and paste it here. Next, let's add a dur attribute, which stands for duration of the animation, and let's say 5 seconds. And let's add repeat count indefinite, so it will be infinite. And let's save this, and here we go. Our wave is animated. So we can decrease the duration so it will be faster, and we can also increase it to make it slower. So I will set it to 33 seconds. So it's very smooth, very slowly, and the way that we want it to be at the end of this project. And because we want it to have a nice gradient color, we will need to add one more element. And this element will be here inside of the G elements, linear gradient. Let's close this. And I made some typo here. Once again, sorry. Gradient. All right. And now let's set it an ID. SVG gradient, let's say. Let's set a point of our gradient, so where it should stop, the first color and the second color. 1, and y-axis to 0, and y to 0, and then we need to add stop elements 2 times, stop color attribute, and I have prepared a color before, but you can use your own. And as always, I'm using HSL format because I consider this format to be the most useful and easiest to manipulate. And the second color, let's also set an offset to 0, and here to 1. And now, because we set an ID to this gradient, Now we can use this instead of our hex color here. So let's add URL, and inside of parentheses we can set it to ID SVG gradient. And after saving the file, you will see that our gradient now works as expected. Let's also add an opacity to the shape, so it will look a bit lighter. And now it's very light, but after we add 4 more shapes and they will overlap, it will be much darker. Now let's copy the path 4 more times. And now we can replace the paths of 4 other SVG shapes with the values that are in the shapes that I've prepared to you, and you can find the links inside of in the description of this video. Yeah. So let me just copy the path of the second shape. And let's replace this. And now the third. And the next one. And the last one. Let's save this and let's see what happened. Oh yeah, we have all our 5 waves and they are animated, and I don't know how do you think, but for me it looks really amazing. So we've done the hard part. Now we need to add a call to action section and interactive image. So let's go down below SVG element and let's add a container, and let's add a row with a Bootstrap grid, 2 columns inside, and the first column will be 7 unit white and the second 5 unit white, because as you know in Bootstrap each grid should add up to 12 columns. So here in the first column let's add h1 element with some text inside. Exclusive. Well, I cannot write correctly. Exclusive offer. Yes. Then let's add below h5 with some lorem ipsum, and below let's add a paragraph with some longer lorem ipsum, and below we'll add a few, not a few, just 2 buttons. So we need button class, and it should be button white, because it's a good idea to use a white elements on the dark background, and we want it to be rounded and also large size. And let's add some text inside by now. Alright, and let's copy this, and actually maybe Let's also add an attribute role button. Let's copy this. All right. Now, as you can see, our SVG shapes overlap the elements, the text and the buttons. So to prevent this, we should position it behind it, and we can easily achieve this by decreasing the Z index of our SVG. So inside of our head elements, let's open style tags and let's catch our SVG via ID, SVG background, and now let's set a Z index to -10. And I think we can also increase the height of our SVG, so 900 pixels, so it's a bit bigger. And now, as you can see, we have this scroll on x-axis. So to prevent this, we will set an overflow on x-axis to the body equals to hidden. Overflow x hidden. And after saving, you will see that it disappears. And since I'm here, let me add one more class. So I will create a helper class with a custom padding, so we can set a custom padding to our call to action section. So padding top custom 1, padding top 70 pixels, and we'll need also a second custom padding class for our image. So let's name it padding top custom 2. And actually it will have a slightly smaller value, 60 pixels. And to make it responsive, because we don't need so big padding on mobile, let me create a media query with minimum width equals to 1199 pixels. So this is the standard Bootstrap value in mobile first approach. Now let me copy this. So on bigger screens above this value, it should be 200 pixels, and here 100 pixels. And now we can use this class here. But I think I made some typo. Yes, it should be width. Now it's okay. Now let's add a few classes to our call to action section to make it look good. So scroll down, and here to make our h1 bigger, we can use a display1 class. So now it's really big. Now let's also add some additional margin bottom, and let's set opacity to 90. And now to make it a bit more consistent with this blue background, we can set it a custom color, which will be this color. So it's very light blue. Right now it's almost impossible to see, but it's actually the same color as a background, but much more lighter. So we can use the same color, but a bit darker for these smaller elements. So it will have this nice effect of gradually decreasing the visibility, because the H1 of course is the most important, and the subheading is not that important, and the description is the less important. So even with a color we can guide the user what's the most important elements in our UI. So here in our H5 element, let's add a few more classes. Margin bottom 4, opacity 80, and let's use the same color here, but not 95, lightness only 90, so it will be a bit darker. And here class margin bottom 4, opacity 70, so as you can see, with every next element we decrease the value of opacity, so it will be even darker. And let me again copy this and we change this to 85. And now let's have a look at our buttons. Let's also add opacity 80 here. And let's add some margin on the right, sorry. And now the second button should be outline. So instead of button white, let's add button outline white with opacity equals to 80. All right. And I think that we can also change the color of the ripple effect here on this regular button, because white ripple on white background isn't visible. So to change this, we will use an attribute data ripple color, and let's use the same color as a background color. So this, yes, now it looks really nice. And that's it about the call to action section. Now let's take care of the image. So in the second column, let's create an AMG element, and I will use the image I've prepared before, but of course you can use whatever image you like. And let's add it a class W100, so it will keep the size of the parent element. And let's also add the helper class we prepared before, padding top custom 2. And let's also add a few more classes to the image. We want it to have rounded corners. And let's add a shadow 5 strong, so it should be very well visible. And let's maybe add an opacity to 80 so we can see the wave behind. And at the end, let's set also an ID, because we will need this to add interactivity card custom. And now to add this very nice interactivity, we'll need to use a very small external library called vanilla tilde. So type this in your browser and click the first result, and here click on vanilla.js and save this to your project. So I'm saving this to the directory where I have downloaded mdb package to JS folder. Now let's link this library. So inside of our JS directory, now I can link vanilla.js. And now we'll need to add a few lines of custom JavaScript. So first, let's initialize the library vanilla.init, and let's catch our card via ID. So document query document query selector and card custom and now let's set an initial starting position. So on the x-axis we want it to moved 45 degrees, and the same on y-axis, and let's set reset to false. So after when the cursor leaves the card, the position will not reset. Let's see if it works. Yes, it works. There are a few more things we can improve here. For example, this interactive card looks very nice on desktop, but on a mobile, maybe it's not that good idea because there is no cursor on mobile devices. So I think we'll do something like this. So let me just copy the image here and we'll create two versions. The first version will be invisible on mobile, so we set display none, but display LG block, so it will be visible only on large screen. And here let's remove this ID. We will add classes to display block on mobile and display LG none, so it will be invisible on large screen. So now when we decrease, you will see we have a normal card on mobile without an interactivity, but I think it's a better solution on mobile devices. We can also add some additional spacing here between the columns, so it will have well, just more space. So here to the row element we can add GXLG5, so basically it means that on the larger screens we need bigger space and bigger gutters. Alright, so at the end we can add some animation on load, something like here. So after refreshing you can see that each element smoothly fade in. So to achieve this we'll need to add a few lines of custom CSS. Let's create a class fade and let's set animation duration to 1 second and animation fill mode to both padding let's set to auto, animation name fade in, and now let's add a few classes for delaying animation, so we can animate each of the element with a different delay, so they will appear gradually. Fade. I forgot dot. Fade delay 15, animation delay 0.15 second, and fade delay 30, animation delay 0.30 seconds. Now let's also set a keyframes. Keyframes slide in 0%, opacity 0, and 100%. Actually, we don't need to mention this. It's enough to write 2, opacity 1. So this basically means that let's start with opacity equals to 0, so the element will be invisible, but then smoothly with this animation opacity will change to 1, so it will be 100% visible. Now all we need to do is to add these classes to our elements. So let's start with h1. Where is h1? Here. All right, let's see if it works. And yes, it works. So here we can add, well, or maybe instead adding this to each particular element, let's add this to the column, so it will be easier. Fade and to the second column, fade delay, fade delay 15. All right. And actually, to make it look even better, let's add this fade delay 15 to the first column, and here we'll change it to 30, so our animation will be better visible because it will appear a bit later. So now you can see it's very smooth and very nice. By the way, did you know that thanks to MD Bootstrap you can use free hosting for your projects? We call it MDB Go and it's really great. Visit mdbgo.com for more information. In the description of this video you'll also find a link to the detailed tutorial on how to use MDB Go hosting and how to install MDB CLI, which is a fantastic and free supporting tool that provides many useful functionalities. Now, let me just show you how easy it is to publish our newly created project on the internet thanks to MDB Go. I already have MDB CLI installed on my computer, so now all I need to do is to run my terminal, and then I need to enter the path of the project I want to upload. So here is the directory where we have downloaded the MDB package and where we have been working during this tutorial. So let me just copy this path and let's enter this. And now I need to type only a single command mdb publish, and I will choose npm package manager, and then all I need to do is to choose a name for my project. Let's name it Animated Waves, and let's accept all other options. And after a few seconds our project is available at this link. So let's see if it works as expected. And yes, it does. Extremely useful and super fast. And that's it for this tutorial. Let me know in the comments if you found it useful. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and join our Facebook group. Thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial.